In today's video, we're going to jump in and play around with CSS Grid inside of Bricks Builder. In particular, we're going to look at creating a single post layout that has the main content area with a sidebar. Now, we're actually going to be updating my real website, wagepirate.com, which is where I blog about WordPress, how to make money online, how to build websites faster, how to use Bricks Builder. Basically, all the videos that I put here on YouTube, similar ideas I put into blog posts on my website here. Now, for today's video, if we go to WordPress tutorials and tips in the main menu, this is my blog page, which lists all my blog posts. And if we go down to one of these, so let's just say a sticky sidebar using CSS, this is a single blog post layout. So we have a title up the top here, the blog post title, but if we go down, we have two columns here. We have the main content area, and then we have this sidebar over here. So this is what we're going to be updating to use CSS Grid. Now, before I jump in and show you how I have this currently set up and then converting it over to CSS Grid and showing you how that works inside of Bricks Builder, I just want to quickly cover the purpose of today's video because it's going to be a little bit different to the other videos that I put out here on YouTube. If you go to my YouTube channel, a lot of the videos that I had posted up until the end of last year were all things that I knew how to do. So I would go and make videos on things that I already had the skills to go and produce. Lately, as I move into more of my most recent videos, I'm actually learning these things and then making videos of what I learned and putting them into these videos. So I'm still learning new skills and then putting them into a package where the deliverable, the final video, is sort of as if like I'm teaching you as if I already knew it, but I didn't know it a week ago. And so it's making me a better front-end developer. It's getting me a lot more involved in Bricks Builder, understanding it at a more advanced level, things like that. But what I want to do in today's video is I want to not package today's video as like, this is ultimately how you do it, but I want to actually learn how to do it in today's videos. So instead of being like, this is exactly how to do it, you'll see me going, okay, well, how do I do this? And then I'll research it, work it into Bricks Builder to get the layout inside of CSS Grid that we want to achieve. I'm going to guess today's video might be a little bit longer. It's going to be a little bit more all over the place as I learn it, but maybe ultimately you'll learn more from seeing the things that I get stumped on and the solutions to that. So yeah, definitely curious to know in the comments below. So with that said, let's jump back and let's start looking at this here and converting it over to CSS Grid. So this is a Bricks Builder template that's applied to my single post. So if we go back to our dashboard and then we go down to bricks and templates, you can see if we go down, my single default with sidebar, that's what I've called it. It's applied to my post types. It's a single template, so it applies to the single blog post for the post types of post, blog post, and a custom post type that I have called product reviews. And a page here, but I'm not going to get into that. It's irrelevant for today's video. So let's go ahead and edit with bricks. And I'll show you how I currently have this set up. So if I just collapse over here, you can see that I have a section here, then a container inside it, and then I have a reading progress bar, which has a little bit of HTML in it. And basically that's just a placeholder for when people are on my blog post and they're scrolling down the page. Up here, just over where my mouse is here, as you scroll down the page, you can see it lets the reader know how much more of the blog post is left to read. If you're curious to know how to set that up inside of Bricks Builder, you can just go back to my WordPress tutorials and tips page. It lists all my blog posts and you can just search for reading progress bar and here it is there, where I give you the HTML, which is just this. So you add it as a code element and then you get a little bit of PHP and some CSS and JavaScript. So you can see it's not too much there. You just copy and paste that and you should have exactly what I have up the top here. That's just another thing that for today's video, it's irrelevant. So I'm just going to drag that up and out of the way. We might add that at the top there because I really just want to focus on this section here. So let's first look at how I have this set up. And I actually built this when I was brand new to Bricks Builder. I rebuilt this website just to understand how Bricks Builder worked. It was when I had no understanding about how FlexBox worked or what it was. And definitely I had no idea about CSS Grid. So if we have a look here, my container here, if I just call this main content, and then in here is our wrap that pulls it in. So our section and then container. Inside the container, we have two divs. The primary, which is this main content area, and then the sidebar over here. So the way that I'm getting this two column layout is if we go back to the wrap, I have it set to flex direction wrap and its direction is as a flex direction row. So the main axis is horizontal. Then inside this wrap, we have two divs. We have the primary content area, which is over here. And then we have the sidebar over here. Now, the way that I've sat these side by side and achieved this layout, if I go back to the wrap, on this wrap here, it's set to display flex. So we have the flex box active, and its flex direction was to rows, so they sat next to each other. And then to control their widths on each of these, so if we go to primary and then to style, you can see that I gave this a width of 70%. And then for the sidebar, I gave it a width of 30%. And then for this sidebar, I gave it the 30 pixels left padding, which gives the illusion here that they're spaced out, sort of like a gap. So that's how it's currently set up. And then as we go through the breakpoints and we reach the mobile landscape, back on the primary, I set its width to 100%. And then for the sidebar, its width is set to 100%. So that's how I've gone out. And if we just preview this on the front end, that's how I've achieved the following, where we pull this in. And obviously this is not looking very good. And then we pull it to there. Now they're both 100% like that. So that's the current solution. And if you've been learning about FlexBox and following along with my videos I've been releasing recently on this channel, you'll know that there's definitely a better way than what I've set up here. It works, it's fine. But if we want to actually use modern CSS, there's going to be a better way to do it, which is what we're going to look at in today's video. One big issue that I want to solve in today's video is for this sidebar here. As I showed you before, as we pull it in, I don't really like how this is being laid out. I probably want to make this sidebar a fixed width. So if we pull it out and we inspect the code here, if this sidebar is about 330 pixels wide currently, I sort of want to have it maintain that so it just sits at 330 pixels wide until maybe a certain breakpoint and then it goes under. I don't really want it to resize the 30% and just keep getting smaller and smaller like this. I really want to get rid of how it's acting right now. And I will show you how to do that today using CSS Grid. Now, worth pointing out at this stage, if we go back to our wrap and go to content, you can see that I got what I wanted to get out of this layout using Bricks Builder by clicking these icons here until the end result was what I was setting out to do. If you're at that stage where you can go out and get the layouts that you want, but you don't really understand what each of these icons are doing, and you don't understand that by clicking on this, it's generating specific CSS code behind the scenes, and you don't understand what that CSS code is and why clicking these icons inside of Bricks Builder gives you the layout that you're trying to get, then I definitely recommend going back and watching these videos here that I've recently posted. The equal height columns in Bricks Builder, the Learn Bricks Builder plus FlexBox video here, especially these two videos here. They've all been designed to help you be more intentional with how you use Bricks Builder. Those two videos that I just showed you run through what each of these icons do, and by the end of watching both of those videos, you'll know exactly what icon to click first time to get the layout that you want. So with all of that covered, let's jump in and look at some of the ways that we can use modern CSS to achieve this layout here. So something that I want to try before we jump in and use CSS Grid is I want to try and recreate this layout without specifying that this is going to be here under style 70% and this is 30%. I actually want to try and use the modern settings we have for FlexBox like Flex Basis. And we might even look at Flex Shrink and Flex Grow. So let's quickly play around with them and then we'll get to the CSS Grid. Because I feel like I've learned quite a bit about FlexBox over the last couple of weeks. And I think we could probably achieve a pretty good layout just using FlexBox still. But again, I do want to cover CSS Grid because it is a new feature inside of Bricks Builder. And I do want to learn it a bit more. So back here in our dashboard, let's go to Bricks and Templates. And let's go add new. And here I'll add Flex Basis, etc. And we will apply this template to our single posts. So I'll go publish and then let's go edit with Bricks. So just quickly, I'm going to click here to add a section and a container. And then for this section, I'm going to give it a background color of white. It's just how my website is currently set up. And to start, let's go up here and we'll go add elements. And I'm going to add post content, which is here. And then let's go to settings and template settings and populate content. And then here, let's select a single post or page. And then here, I'm going to search for my blog post, which is WooCommerce checkout page like Shopify's. Let's go apply preview. And now we have some content to work with. If you're liking the video so far, please consider giving it a like and subscribing to my channel so you get notified when I release content like the one that you're watching right now. Thank you very much. Now let's go back to the video. So over here on the post content, I'm just going to right click this and I'm going to wrap this and I'm going to wrap this in a block and I'm just going to call this primary content. And then to save a bit of time, I might come back into the existing design and just copy the sidebar from there. So I'll just right click and I'll go to copy, and then over here inside the container, let's paste. And for the sidebar, I'm just going to right click and go convert to block. So over here, and I'll collapse that. So now we have our container with our primary content and then our sidebar. So let's go ahead and sit them next to each other. So to do that, I'll go up to the container. So we can see that by default, the container element inside of Bricks Builder has display flex applied. So all we need to do is change the flex direction to be a row, so horizontal. So if I click on this, now the main axis is going horizontally, and they're sat next to each other. Now we've actually achieved the layout that we're looking for. So what's happened here? If we go back into our sidebar and then we go to style and then we go to layout, you can see that when I copied the sidebar from the existing design into this new design, it came across with all settings. One of those settings was a width of 30%. And by setting the width on just this element here to be 30%, coming back to the parent element, we're trying to sit the children of this parent next to each other in the row. FlexBox knows that we have set this to be 30%. And so the other children on that row are taking up the other available width. So if this is 30%, then this is going to be 70%. And again, it looks like there's a gap there, but there actually isn't. There's just padding on this sidebar. If we go back to our sidebar and then style, if I remove this padding for now, it might be a bit easier to read. So this is set to 30%, back on the container. They're trying to sit the children next to each other. So it's trying to sit the primary content area and sidebar next to each other on a row. We've defined this being 30%, and FlexBox just gets the other children and takes up the other available space. That's what's happening there. Now to add that gap there, what we could do is on this container, we can come down to column gap and we could set this to something like 3 rem. And now we have that gap there. So FlexBox, if we save this and preview it on the front end and then right click and inspect. So here's our sidebar, and that's going to be 360 pixels wide, which should be 30% of the container. So if we go back and find the container is 1200 pixels wide. If I just move myself up and go to computed and we go down to the width. So width is 1200 pixels. So 1200 times 30% is 360 pixels. So that is in fact 30% as we defined. And then going up, we have the primary area, but in between there, we set a column gap of 3 rem. So if we click back on this container and then the computer tab and we go down a little bit, you can see the column gap is set to 30 pixels because Bricks Builder in its CSS resets the default font size to be 10 pixels. So 10 times 3 rem is going to be 30 pixels. So that's 30 pixels there. And so FlexBox is getting the 1200 pixels of the container minus the 30% for the sidebar, which is 360 pixels in width, minus the 3 rem, which is 30 pixels, which equals 810 pixels. So if we go to the primary area, you can see that this is, if we go down, 810 pixels. So that's how we managed to get this layout by only setting the width on one element over here. So now what I want to do is let's try and achieve the following. Let's have this sidebar be 360 pixels, which it currently is when we set the 30% width, but I want it to stay at 360 pixels as we resize the browser. And I only want this main primary content area to resize. So fixed width sidebar, the primary area resizes its width. So to do that, I know we need to use flex basis here. So for the sidebar, let's go under style and I'm just going to remove the width. And I'm not sure what's happened here. Let's try and have a look at what's going on. So this is set to FlexBox and its direction is row. The primary content has no width set. What's under CSS? It's just a CSS ID. And then the sidebar, there shouldn't be any width. That's just the ID. Is there a width set? No. So I'm not quite sure why that is stretching outside of its area because they should just be sat next to each other. Because the container here ends there, as you can see. Primary content area is 50% or thereabouts, which is what we expect. The sidebar is extending. What I want to try and do is let's just go ahead and just delete the content inside here. So I'll just delete that and then delete that. And let's actually just start from scratch. I'm just going to delete that. We have our primary content and then let's go up to here and add a new block. So we'll add that in and now that's working exactly how we wanted. So there's some bit of code in my current sidebar that was just acting up. I'm not quite sure what it is, but just going to leave that for now. Let's just go ahead and try and recreate that. So sidebar, and I'll just rename this ID to sidebar just so it's easier for us to go through our code. And then let's go back here. Let's try copying these elements one by one. So I'll go copy, then in here, let's paste. Okay, so that's extending out. So maybe that's the problem. Let's get the next thing. So this one, copy, and then go back here and paste. That's extending out as well. So let's go back in here. And do you know what? I've just realized it's because this is a container element. And the container elements have a width, I'm pretty sure. If we just preview this on the front end, I have no idea why I would have used a container here. But if we right click and inspect element here and have a look, you can see this is that container for that sort of widget, I guess you'd say. And if we go through the code and try and find our container, you can see its width is set to 1200 pixels. So if I turn that off, that's what's happening. So yeah, I have no idea why when I first built this website, I would have used a container there. Or maybe when Bricks Builder released sections and containers and blocks, maybe something got lost along the way there. But all we really need to do is go ahead and just convert this to a block. So here, plugin of the month, I'll just right click and we'll go convert and let's go to block. And now that's looking a lot better. We lost some of the styling, but it's okay. Do you know what? I'm actually going to go ahead and delete this for now. So I'll delete the sidebar, go back to our existing sidebar and I'll copy this, go back to our new one and I'll paste it in there. And I'm just going to look for these containers where there's one here you can see from the icon. So I'm just going to convert all of these to blocks. So I'll just right click this and go convert to block. And then plugin of the month here, I'll right click and I'll go to convert to block. Okay, we fixed that. Is looking a lot more like what we need. What's this? This is a container as well. I don't know what I was doing. Right click, convert to block. Okay, cool. So we fixed that issue and then we just got to go back to the sidebar again. And because we set that width there, we'll get rid of that. And now this is looking a lot more like how we expected it to behave when we went to the container and we set its flex direction to be horizontal. Back on this sidebar, when I copied it from the existing website, we just need to get rid of that padding as well. And I just realized this sidebar is a div. I should have just done a block like that. So now these should be even. So when we went to the container and we set this to flex direction row, what that would do is it would get the width of this whole container and then it would get the gap in here, which is 3 rem, which we know is 30 pixels in here. So it would do 1200 for the width of the container minus the 30 pixels for the gap, which we set down here. And then Flexbox would divide by the number of columns, so 2. So each column should be 585 pixels wide. So that's what we expected. I think we've got it. So let's preview and just right click and inspect. So if we go and find our primary column and go to computed and go down, we should see the width is 580 pixels. And then also if we click on the sidebar, that's 585 as well. Okay, so we're finally getting somewhere. Okay, so let's go back here. And now let's look at making this a fixed width and only having this content area resize. So to do that, we're going to be using flex basis. So I know that. So let's go onto our sidebar. So you actually click onto the child element. And then for this child element, you come down here to flex basis and you would set its width. So we'll say 360 pixels. So let's try 450 pixels here, which I think looks pretty good. So let's save this and just see what's happening with this. So let's go ahead and bring this in and see what happens. So you can see it's still resizing the sidebar over here, its width, and it's also resizing this main content area, the primary area. So we still do have some resizing going on. So inside of Flexbox, to make this not be able to be resized, we come back to the child element, so the sidebar. We've set its flex basis to be 450 pixels. And then what we need to do is flex shrink. I think we need to set this to 0 because 1 means it's allowed to shrink. It's allowed to get smaller. But if we set this to 0, it should mean that it's not allowed to get any smaller. And you can see it's actually updated. So if we save this and go back here and reload, now when I pull this in, see how the sidebar isn't resizing? And so before, when we didn't have flex shrink set, this here isn't actually 450 pixels. It's actually allowed to shrink. And that's why if we say don't shrink, so we set that to 0, then now it's 450 pixels. I was wondering why I was setting that so large. And so let's go back here and set this to 360 pixels like we saw in the previous current sidebar template. So now by doing this, we're saying set the basis for this child element, its width to be 360 pixels like this, and it's not allowed to shrink. It's not allowed to get smaller. And then the primary content, there's nothing set. So we're basically saying, hey, Flexbox on the container, set the children of our container horizontally on a row like this. Then we've said the sidebar needs to be 360 pixels wide and it's not allowed to shrink or get smaller. And Flexbox just knows that get the other children, so there's only one, the primary area, and use it to fill the other available space on that row. So minus the 30 pixel column gap here, the rest is going to be that, and it just resizes. So coming back here, if we reload, you can see we've achieved that. Now, before we move on, you might be wondering, what does Flex Basis actually do? Basically, what happens is when Flexbox is trying to lay out items in its row or column, so along the flex direction for the container, where we set it to row, when the browser is trying to render these two children elements along the row, it uses the Flex Basis to calculate its size. So we're actually specifying to the browser, hey, make this 360 pixels wide when you're laying out the row for the container. Now we have set pixels here, but you can set different things as well. You could set like percentages. So to do that, we could come here to our sidebar and we could say, I'll get rid of flex shrink just for now. Let's just say flex basis. We want to set this to 30%. And then back here on the primary content, we could set its flex basis to be 70%. If we save this and then go here and preview on the front end. So what that's doing, if we come back to our design, is if our container is 1200 pixels wide and it's trying to lay out the items inside our container, it's going to get the 1200 pixels minus the 30 pixels column gap that we set. So 1200 pixels minus the 30 pixels column gap. So this is the remaining space along this row. And then we're saying give 70% of that space to the primary area over here and 30% over here. So if we get this and find the 70%, so times 70% and have a look, 819 pixels. So this should be 819 pixels. And if we go up and we have a look and go to the computer tab and go down, we can see the width is 819 pixels there. So now that we've gone ahead and done that, let's go ahead and recreate this using CSS Grid. Now I'm going to leave this design here in case we need to refer back to it in a second. So I'll just save this. And I might actually go back and just reset this to the fixed width. So this is going to be 360 pixels wide, and we're not going to allow it to get any smaller. And the primary content area just takes up the available remaining space. So I'll save that. Now back here in Bricks Builder, let's go ahead and add new, and we'll call this single CSS grid. And over here, we'll select single and go publish. And then let's go edit with bricks. And I'll just do the same as before. So we'll add a section. And then for this section, we'll just give it a background so we can see what we're doing. And I'll go up to settings and template settings and populate content. And here we'll do a single post or page. And here we'll select the how to add a table of contents to Bricks Builder. And we'll go apply. And then in here, let's go ahead and add some post content. So I'll go up to here and we'll add a block, and then I'll just call this primary again. And we'll give the primary ID over here, just so we can see our code a bit easier. So in here, let's add our post content element like that. And then let's go back to the design that we've been working on through today's tutorial. And I'll just copy the sidebar from here. So I'll go copy, and then back here, let's paste that in there. And we'll get rid of the flex basis and the flex row and the flex direction. So we'll just get rid of everything there. And now we're ready to go. So to apply CSS Grid, you need Bricks Builder 1.6.1, the version. So it's the latest one. And let's go up to the container, and then we'll go here. So under display, if we click here where it's defaulted to flex, if we click, we have this option for grid. So let's go grid. So nothing happens by default. So now we just need to come down here for grid template columns. We just need to set the columns. So if we write 50%, and then 50%, that creates a grid where the first column is 50%, the second column is 50%, which is what you're seeing on the screen here. And then we could go up to here and add our 3 rem gap in between them. And now we have 2 even columns with that 30 pixel gap there. So now to make this sidebar like the example today where it's 360 pixels wide, it's going to be this second column there. So we could just set this here to 360 pixels. But you can see now this first column is 50% width of the container, and then this is 360 pixels. There's 30 pixel gap here. We have some available space over here. So to make this other column here, the primary area, stretch the full width. So this is a fixed width, and then our primary area takes up all the available space. what we can do is we can come over to here and type 1FR. And what that is doing is it's getting the width of the container, so the width of this grid, minusing the fixed width, minusing the gaps, and then the available space in there, it's just making it fill up. So this stands for this 1FR. Here's a good definition. FR is a fractional unit and 1FR is for one part of the available space. That's what it's doing. When we set this to 1FR, it's basically going take up one bit of the available space. And there's only two columns. One has a fixed width. And so this one here, this first column is really the only other column in this grid competing for the available space. That's why it just takes up all the available space. If we were to go into this container and add another block here, so let's add a block here and I'll give it a background color. So let's go to style, background, and then here, let's set it to a purple color. And then inside here, we might add some text and we'll set its text color to be a white. So we'll go up to typography and set it to white. And then here, let's just add some padding as well. So around it, we'll add say 3 rem. So now if we analyze what's happening, we have our container here and under content, we set it to display grid and we set two different columns here for our grid. So the second column is a fixed width of 360 pixels. And then we have the 3 rem gap. And then for the remaining space in the grid, we've set it to 1FR, one fractional unit, which means it takes up one fractional unit of the available space. And there's only one item competing here for the grid. And so it takes up all the available space. Now, because we have two values here, it's set to a 2-column grid. This third item here goes under it. And you can see it goes into the grid. So if we have a 2-column grid where it's one fractional unit and then a fixed width, you can see primary is one fractional unit, sidebar, fixed width. Then it goes one fractional unit. So if we copy this and pasted it again, this block over here is now the fixed width. And it's just going to repeat like that. If we just duplicate this, one fractional unit, and then if we duplicate it again, the fixed width. And it's just following the grid template, which is this. Now, to further play around with this 1FR and get a better understanding of it, basically because I want to learn a bit more and see what actually happens. Now, if we go ahead here and add another column, so 1FR, personally, I would have thought that this column and that column would be equal widths. So we'd get the 1200 from the container minus a 30 pixel gap here, minus a 30 pixel gap there, minus the fixed 300 pixel here. And then for the remaining space, distributed it evenly between these here because they're one fractional unit each. I'm not quite sure why this one is bigger than this one. I'm wondering if maybe it's the content inside this blog post. So let's just save this for now. And I might go to settings, template settings, populate content. And let's just choose another blog post. Let's try the Bricks Builder coming soon page. We'll go apply and they're still not even. Okay, so why aren't these even? The container, display grid, and then 1FR 360. If I do 1FR on all of them, are they even? No, they're not. Let's go to our primary. I don't think we have any width set on these anywhere. So I'm not quite sure what could be going on. Grid, column, grid, row. If we go back to the container, 1FR. If I just try and change this to a fixed width, does that work? Try 200. Yes, I mean, that's resizing. So let's try 1FR. Let's just try it and Google this. So equal width columns in CSS Grid. So this, why is that not working? 1FR is about the distribution of available space. This breaks as the content becomes bigger than the track size. By default, it does not overflow and adjusts the column width accordingly. That's why not all 1FR are guaranteed to be of equal width. Okay, so learn something new. 1FR is actually rather just a shorthand for min max. So the minimum it can be is its auto, the max 1FR. If you really need the columns to be exact same width, you should use 3 min. Min max 0 1FR allows the grid tracks to be as small as 0 but as large as one fractional unit, creating columns that will stay equal. So the issue is this: it breaks as soon as the content becomes bigger than the track size. So let's go back and I'm just going to go ahead and duplicate this for now. So I'll just get that and paste. And then on this section here for the primary, let's just delete that. And you can see they are in fact the same. So that is the case. Our primary blog post content exceeds the track size for that column, so the width. And that's why it was just, it was trying to do that, but it couldn't, so it just expanded. So now we have those 3 even columns, which is what that person on Stack Overflow was saying. So let's go ahead and just delete that. So we're working back with this column here. So I'm wondering how does it know what content is too big to overflow? Because all the images would be responsive. Is it like how many lines per text? If you could let me know in the comments below how it's calculating that this is too big for the track size to apply 1FR, that'd be really helpful for me to help my understanding. But it does look like that is the issue. So what can we do about that? Let's collapse both of these and that and that and that and that. Back on the container, let's try and get these 2 columns taking up the same width. So let's search. So in Google, let's try CSS Grid 3 columns, middle column, fixed width. This looks promising. CSS Grid 3 columns, first and second same size, middle size fixed. Let's have a look. So down here, the grid 1FR, the fixed, and then 1FR, which is what we have, and the grid items for the children overflow hidden. So let's try that and see what happens. Let's run this code snippet. So you can see, okay, so that looks like it. Let's go back. So here in our primary, let's search for our overflow setting and we'll change this to hidden. And it looks like that has solved it. So let's save this. And then let's preview this on the front end. Okay, so now they should be equal. And then this is 360. So let's just double check. So looking at this, so that's 360. I'll just move that up. So here computed will go down to the width. This is 360 in the middle. Then we're going to have 30 pixels either side of that. And the container is 1200 pixels. So 1200 width for the container minus the 30 pixel gap here, minus the 30 pixel gap over here, minus the 360 pixels width for the middle column, and then 1 fractional unit for each of these 2 columns. So they should be equal. So this is the available space divided by 2. So this should be 390. So let's have a look, which it looks like it is, width 390. And then this one as well should be equal as well. So this should be 390, which it is. So the available space has been distributed as we needed it to. So if we go back here, and I'll pull that down. To build on this, let's go to here and let's go out of that setting and back to the content. So what if we wanted to set this column here to be twice the width as this column here? Then we could just do 2FR, and now we've achieved that as well. So if we save that and go back here, so you can see after it's got the 1200 for the width of the container, and then minus the width of this middle column, minus the 2 column gaps here, whatever's left over, that number, 2/3 of that has been to the width over here and 1/3 has been over here. So it's like a ratio. Okay, but that was interesting. I didn't know about that overflow. I thought 1FR would force it to be. But yeah, we've learned something today in this video, and I hope you have as well. But with that done, let's go back and finish off today's video. So I'm going to get rid of these. So delete that, and then delete that, and delete that. And then go back to our grid, and we're just going to set that to 360 pixels fixed for our sidebar, 30 pixel gap here, and then the remaining space 1FR over here for the main content. So let's save that and preview that on the front end. And now when I pull that in, that is a fixed width. Now you can see, just say it gets too small around here, and then it goes to like something weird like that. Let's just quickly finish off that. So let's go back to editing. So let's go to our breakpoint. So it's here. So our sidebar, if we go to say style and layout, it has a width here. It's from when we copied it over from the existing template. Let's just get rid of that for now. So that solves that. But then as we go down to the smaller breakpoint, this is probably where we want them to collapse on top of each other. So I'm not going to set any widths here like I had in my current website. We're going to come back to the container, and then at this breakpoint, we'll go to content, and we can just overwrite the grid template columns. Now my gut here says that we should be able to just write 100% here. And now each column is 100% of the width, so they're sat under each other. But I'm wondering if there's a different way to do it inside of CSS Grid. So I just searched for CSS Grid make columns take up 100% of the width, and I just clicked into this one here. And this one says grid auto columns auto, which if we go through these, it looks like it takes up the full width if we go down. So let's go back and let's just write auto there. And it looks like that is working. Let's see what that does. Grid template columns auto. So here on W3 Schools, if we search for auto, down here, auto, the size of the columns is determined by the size of the container and on the size of the content. Now, I guess the difference there between setting this to 100% and auto would be 100%. I'm specifically saying I want these columns to be 100% width. So I definitely want them to go under each other. Whereas if you were to do auto, then depending on how much content is inside there, it might not stretch the full width. But for this layout and the content that's in this template, auto would cause these both to be 100% just because there's a lot of content in each of them. But yeah, let me know in the comments below if I'm missing something there for the grid template columns. So we're going to end this video there. If you did like today's video where I'm a bit more explorative, I guess, and actually, showing you what I don't know and trying to find the answers. If you actually like that and you got more value out of these style of videos versus the ones where I just tell you how to do something and you don't see the problems that I occurred along the way to actually work out how to do that thing, let me know in the comments below. This was fun today, so I hope you did enjoy it, and I'll see you guys in the next video, which is on the screen right now.